And welcome to Nightmare Nation.
Nightmare Nation.
With Anna and Annie.
I'm Annie.
I am Anna.
We've been friends for a long time, and Anna convinced me to start watching horror movies back in high school when I was convinced that I hated them. And
she hated them.
I didn't think there was any reason to want to try to scare yourself on purpose. That sounded stupid to me. And I quickly realized that she was absolutely right, and I was an idiot.
Like with everything. It's fine.
Of course, obviously. And we quickly became obsessed with all things horror. Mm-hmm. And to this day, 13 years later?
Something like that, 8th grade.
Yep, we're now 26. Yep, that's 13. I can do math.
Woo!
My math's so good. So we're obsessed with all things horror, and we want to bring scary stories to you because
they're our favorite, and we want to share it with you. And whether or not you believe in ghosts or anything like that, we are going to change your mind.
Yeah. Because even if you don't, I mean, who doesn't love a good scary story?
Right.
Everyone does. So,
even if they don't believe it, they want to know about it. They're still interested. They still want to learn.
Don't lie to yourself.
Exactly.
You know you want to know.
They do.
So our goal is to bring you the deep, dark, terrifying history of some of the world's most haunted locations and horrible things that have happened, which who doesn't love listening to that in their daily life? There's already enough horrible things in the world. Let's just add another pile on top.
Why not?
Why not?
Scare your pants off.
Cool.
And then on top of it, adding in some of our own personal stories, other people's stories, and then as well, us potentially going on different haunting adventures and coming back to let you guys know how that goes.
Yeah, we might do our own amateur ghost hunting expeditions because we're super professional. So
we know exactly what we're doing. It's pretty
completely.
Cool. So, watched enough ghost adventures and ghost hunters in my life. So
right. Everyone loves those shows.
By the way, Ghost Hunters is coming back August 29th.
And what season is this now?
Well, it's going to be season 1 of the new series, but technically like season 10 or something.
So it's like a reboot.
Yeah.
Cool.
Pretty awesome.
Is it going to be on Netflix?
No.
Shit.
It's a sci-fi.
Okay.
It's my favorite.
All right, we'll find a way to watch it together.
I have season 1.
Great.
Watch that.
So much Ghost Hunters. This is my childhood wrapped up. In 5 seconds is Ghost Hunters with Anna. Yes. My childhood. So.
What was our first movie we watched?
Something awful. I'm pretty sure you had Black Christmas on DVD.
Was that the first one I made you watch?
Maybe. I remember vividly going to see it's so bad. I remember going to see The Strangers with you in high school, and we had a sleepover afterwards.
Yeah.
And we had our parents pick us up from the movie theater, and we legit had a sleepover because we were so scared afterwards.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Didn't we see When a Stranger Calls too?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Don't you have that on DVD too?
Oh, of course I do. I saw that 3 times in theaters.
Yep.
So good.
Real good stuff. So high quality cinema.
Yes.
Annabelle Comes Home just came out. I want to see it.
I didn't know that one was coming out.
Yeah, the other Annabelle movies. Well, the first one was kind of bad, but the second one was really good. They're very scary. Well, great. Shall we jump in?
Here we go.
Okay, so
our first haunting.
Today, we are bringing you the history of the Eastern State Penitentiary.
Woo! The most haunted place on Earth.
Probably.
Pretty freaking sweet.
Maybe. To be determined. You tell us.
I suppose.
You tell us. We're not the professionals here.
Exactly. Yes, we are.
Well,
we just told them we were.
Shit. You guys decide. You decide if you believe us or not. We just Googled some stuff. I looked at some Wikipedia articles. Very top-notch research. In fact, most of my research on the history of this haunting location comes from easternstate.org, which I'm pretty sure qualifies as a legitimate academic resource.
Absolutely.
If you're going to write a school paper.
It's got the .org in it. So
yep,
obviously.
.org. The other one's Wikipedia, so God bless Wikipedia.
That's average.
So, all right, so I'm going to jump in and tell you a little bit about the history of this this horrible place, which was actually intended to be a nice place for people. It didn't end up being that way, so we'll kind of jump into the details here. So, to set the stage, late 1700s America. So, America has just gained independence from Britain. It's pretty early in our nation's history. America's newly formed, and at the time, prisons were real bad, apparently. So guards were violent, flogging and execution were not uncommon punishments. Children were often imprisoned for petty crimes such as theft. and punished violently. So really just all around a shitty situation.
Perfect.
So prison, not a great place to be in post-revolutionary America. So by 1987, something called the Philadelphia Society for Alleviating the Miseries of Public Prisons.
Oh my.
Is that a mouthful? Or
You gotta say that 3 times fast.
Philadelphia Society for
Jeez.
Alleviating the Miseries of Public Prisons.
Holy crap.
So this society became concerned with the state of the prisons in newly formed America, and they had a meeting at Benjamin Franklin's house in Philadelphia, which is pretty cool.
Huh.
But Dr. Benjamin Rush, not Dr. Benjamin Franklin, Dr. Benjamin Rush, he was a key member of this really stupidly named society, and he was starting to argue that the system was overcrowded and it was corrupt, and we needed to basically reform the prison system, and the idea was that we should switch to solitary confinement.
Because that makes the most sense.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea with this system was that if you put people alone long enough, they would be genuinely inspired to feel regret or penitence for their crimes.
Or you're just going to make them insane.
Well, I think this is before mental illness was a recognized thing. So,
that makes sense.
Just put people alone in a dark box long enough. And the whole idea was that they had nothing else to distract themselves from other than their crimes that they had committed. And so if they thought about them long enough, they'd eventually see the wrongness of their ways. That's a word, wrongness.
Then they just keep them in there without letting them go after realizing their wrongness?
We'll get there. Okay. So penitence, actually, the whole idea of this new system is actually where the word penitentiary comes from. Keep that in your back pocket for next trivia night. So it was basically the new name for prisons under this new system. So at the time, no government in the world had actually successfully carried out a program like this. Go figure. So it took this ridiculously named committee 30 years to convince the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to build the new type of prison. But eventually they succeeded, so they built the new Eastern State Penitentiary in 1829. So the goal of this building was to end the quote-unquote ill treatment of prisoners and to get rid... ill treatment! No. Very generic. And get rid of corporal punishment. So... this whole idea was inspired by the Quaker religion. So it was a Quaker-inspired philosophy, which basically meant the idea was that if you had isolation mixed with hard labor, that kind of brings people back to their essence of goodness, and they would be distracted from their crimes and feel penitence towards them and kind of feel positive effects from their hard labor, I guess. So the building originally was designed by British-born architect John Haviland. Don't quote me on that pronunciation. So the interior resembled a church, and the exterior was designed to look like a medieval Gothic castle. So if that doesn't give you nightmares,
that's cool.
I mean, cool probably from us as outsiders, but maybe not so much for the people in prison. So the initial design had 7 main cell blocks attached to a central surveillance area where the guards would hang out, and to create conditions of isolation. Each prisoner had their own cell, which they were actually pretty modern for the time. Each cell had central heating, running water, toilets, and skylights. So that was actually pretty impressive because at the time the White House didn't even have running water. So this prison was actually pretty bougie. Despite the other horrible things happening there, the conditions of the cells weren't terrible. And each cell was attached to a private outdoor exercise yard that the inmates would go and exercise in alone, and the walls were built so high that they wouldn't be able to actually have any contact with any of the other prisoners. So the whole idea was that you have as little contact with other people as possible. So that means they also didn't have any contact with the outside world. The only activities they could participate in were reading the Bible or performing quote-unquote honest work, which entailed shoemaking and weaving and other crafts.
That sounds awesome.
So imagine you're just in a cell, you can't talk to prisoners, you can't talk to your family, the outside world, and all you can do is exercise or weave shirts and sweaters.
I also read too that when they were walking from cell to cell, they put bags.
Exactly. Yes, bags head. With no eye holes over their
so they can't see where they're going.
Right, and there's just a whole
complete solitude.
Terrible. So the whole idea was they wanted to keep the prisoners from knowing too much about the building and stop them from any possible human interaction. So again, I think maybe the ideas and the intent was good, but maybe the execution wasn't so great because that just sounds like a one-way trip to mental illness land and PTSD. Yeah, so the isolation practices were definitely considered modern at the time and they were progressive, but shortly after the building's opening, by the 1830s and 40s, some were starting to argue that the practices were cruel. So there was a couple of notable English authors, of course, who I didn't write down who they were, who were starting to argue that this was not humane, and while the intent was good, it was actually more detrimental to the prisoners. Go figure.
Because you need to have that interaction with people.
Yeah.
You just can't do full-on solidarity.
Yeah, I would say so. So, over time, the prison started to change. New cells were added, but they didn't have the private exercise yards. Instead, the prisoners would actually exercise together, but in total silence. Can you imagine that?
Just awful.
Exercising with nothing but the sound of sweaty men.
And heavy breathing.
And, heavy breathing.
That sounds great.
That's all you get. No interaction, no music. There's no, exercise playlist going on in the background. Terrible. The hoods eventually got eye holes, which was considered, a lot more humane than the previous hoods that didn't have eye holes.
Perfect.
And by 1890, about half the prisoners actually had cellmates, but this wasn't really because they were trying to be humane. It's because they had overcrowding problems.
Yep.
Quickly ran out of space for prisoners. So the critics of this solitary system eventually won, and the so-called Pennsylvania system was officially abandoned in 1913, again, mostly due to overcrowding, not because anyone actually gave a crap about the prisoners. Yep. So at this time, the conditions really started to deteriorate, so solitary confinement was gone. More cells were constructed, but these were placed underground with no windows, so just dark, dingy, awful, no skylight. Fun note on the skylights, actually, in the original cells, they were considered to be the eyes of God.
Oh, good Lord.
So that you were basically trapped by yourself with no one but God watching you. And
Perfect.
Actually, right? No privacy. God is always watching.
Consistently watching.
And the doorways were built super small and narrow and shallow, so that you basically had to bend over to get into your cell. And to this day, no one's really sure, from the articles I read, no one's entirely sure why that was. There's one theory that says that this made it harder for any prisoners to attack the guards as they were being escorted from their cells. And then the other half of the crowd argues that it was because then the prisoners were forced to bow as they were walking into their cells.
Yeah, I was going to say that would make more sense.
Yeah, they're bowing to God and being watched by the eye of God through their skylight. It's
especially
very
through
creepy.
the past of how it came to be.
Right. Very creepy. So again, in reality, so in practice, this was supposed to be a humane prison. But in reality, the facility staff were starting to conduct both physical and psychological torture for any sort of bad behavior, including, quote, dousing prisoners in freezing water outside during the winter months, which sounds terrible. Mm-hmm. A horrible practice of chaining their tongues to their wrists, such that struggling against the chains could cause the tongue to tear. And presumably breed to death. Breed to death. Whoa! Breathing forever. No, bleed to death. That sounds terrible. And then also strapping prisoners into chairs with tight leather restraints for days on end and putting the worst behaved prisoners into a pit called the Hole.
That sounds delightful.
Right. It's also not very creative.
No.
It's not like
a hole.
The pit of punishment. No, it's the Hole.
The Hole.
The Hole.
Sounds mysterious.
Which is one of the underground cell blocks where they would have no light or human contact for as long as 2 weeks.
Good God.
I mean, when you say it out loud, it doesn't sound like a lot, but can you imagine being completely in the dark with, no food? You probably are getting, a small amount of water. Mm-hmm. You have no interaction. You're in the dark for 2 weeks.
Yeah, no. I would
in
go
the dark.
bonkers.
I there's no coming back from that.
No,
it's insanity.
Absolutely not.
It's insanity. All right. So we're in the 1960s now, so lots of time has passed. At this point, the prison was horribly aged and in need of repair, and by 1970, it was actually officially closed. The city of Philadelphia originally, they bought the site in 1980 with the intent to develop it, but the Eastern State Penitentiary Task Force thought that all of the proposals for reusing the property were, quote, inappropriate. And they petitioned the mayor at the time to actually halt redevelopment, so they never really got anywhere with the property. And it was actually then reopened for tours in 1994.
Huh.
So, almost, math. 140 years of, nope,
terrible.
That's bad math. A long time of having the building open. Went from this, really great idea of, peaceful, hard labor and, true reflection on your crimes, and the whole idea is that it was humane, and really it just became a total hellhole. Mm-hmm. Which is why there's so many horrible hauntings associated with this place, which is what Anna is going to get into now.
So back in the 1970s, kind of right around when it was closed, is when they were really kind of starting to see the increase in the haunting stories, obviously because after everything that happened, no one was there, and they were doing the tours and everything. That's when everything just kind of came up. So there were a couple different stories that are kind of like the most well-known at Eastern State. So one of them was actually Al Capone. He was in Eastern State.
Like the gangster.
Yes.
Al Capone.
The gangster.
I don't really know anything about him other than he's an Italian mobster guy.
Yes.
Cool.
That's about it.
Great.
Did some bad crimes.
Okay.
And was in jail.
Locked up in Philadelphia.
Yes.
All right, cool.
But what happened with Al Capone is throughout his time that he was at Eastern State, he kept informing the guards that there was this ghost who was just consistently attacking him and torturing him at night. I believe his name was... Oh, gosh. I thought I wrote...
Greg.
Greg? I don't think it was
I'm making
Greg.
things up.
Gerald? Johnny? Gerard?
Something with a G.
Something like that.
The G-Man.
Yes. And so it looks like he spent a total of 8 months confined at Eastern State Penitentiary. And... Oh, it's Jimmy!
Jimmy!
There it is, not a G.
His name is Jimmy! Oh my god, he sounds like the
Okay.
friendliest ghost ever. Like,
Aw,
screw
man.
Casper. I want to be friends with Jimmy the ghost. He sounds like a good time.
Right? So, okay. So
Can you imagine, like, being in your cell and there's a ghost in your room and you're like, who's there? And it's like, Jimmy.
Oh, God.
That'd be amazing. I would not be scared at all. Like,
Start
I'm
laughing.
Sorry, your name is Jimmy.
Oh,
It's
God.
not scary. Okay,
So,
continue.
okay, anyways. So he kept insisting that he was being tortured by a man named... His full name was James Clark. So James Clark was actually killed in an event known as St. Valentine's Day Massacre. So every night, Al Capone would literally just scream and scream and scream, saying that he's essentially being attacked by this ghost, being tortured. And every time the guards went over to check on him, make sure everything was okay, the guards literally saw absolutely nothing. Like, it was just him screaming and yelling.
Well, sure.
And, I mean, considering the conditions that they were in and the torture they received...
Although, to be fair, I saw pictures of Al Capone's cell, and it was not bad. He was, like, pretty famous for having a nice prison cell. He had, like, a rug and, like, a little lamp and a desk in there. He had, like, the very fancy prison cell.
Maybe they gave him some special treatment there then.
Yeah, probably. Or he just couldn't handle it.
Right. After being locked up for how long?
I mean,
just wanted to get out.
Jimmy's pretty scary.
He is super scary.
Yeah, I mean...
He's a torturer.
Yep.
He's killed.
St. Valentine's Massacre, man. They'll mess you up. Jimmy's messed up forever.
Right. So yeah, after guards consistently checking on him, nothing was ever found. But they all say that Al Capone, he had a high level of intelligence and just was shook up by what he experienced and everything. So it's like, obviously there's something there.
Sure.
That
I suppose you probably have to be
found.
intelligent to be like a famous gang, like mobster,
Right.
overlord guy. You typically don't get that position if you're like really stupid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then the second story that comes about is with the locksmith. So this is one of kind of the bigger stories and one of the most well-known stories is... So there's a locksmith who kind of like went around, helped during restoration. He was working in cell block 4, and that one I do believe was a... What's the word I'm looking for?
Can't help you.
It was a restricted area.
Yep, restricted.
So not many people were able to go in.
So he's like one of the only people that would be in that area for a reason. Yep.
Yeah, so he was working on trying to get an old 100-year-old lock open.
Cool.
And what happened while he was trying to do that is he essentially felt and experienced an out-of-body experience, essentially. So while he was working on the lock, he felt like just a super evil presence by him, just like essentially engulfing him. And like he didn't feel like himself. He felt super shook up and just a super strong negative energy. And there were a lot of other reports on later on too in cell block 4 when they opened it up of just like that negative energy and just feeling of just terribleness.
Do we know if, like, people died in cell block 4?
That I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure.
The ghost, Jimmy just decided to, like, migrate over.
I mean, it's a total possibility.
Jimmy got sick of haunting Al Capone and was like, I gotta migrate over. I gotta check out another cell.
Maybe more of like a torture chamber.
Yeah, probably.
Down there, potentially.
Maybe it's where they freeze prisoners with icy water in the middle of winter.
That could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems like a prime haunting location.
So then there was, kind of one of the main areas in Eastern State is the main catwalk. So main catwalk, I do believe, was kind of more at the front of the penitentiary, where a lot of the, obviously, inmates were held, and it had just a main, huge overlook in the front of it. So here's like a little picture.
Oh my god.
We'll post it on our Facebook page.
Oh, that's terrifying.
But it's just super, super open, super terrifying. But going back to ghost hunters, they actually went and investigated at Eastern State Pen. And they had captured a video of, it was a shadowy figure that just popped up. So we both haven't actually watched it yet. So we're going to watch it and you're going to hear a real-time reaction of what we think we see. As long as I can get her pulled up here.
Get her pulled up.
Pulling it. I feel like I remember this episode.
I've only seen a few.
I think it's more like down the hallway that they see it.
I haven't seen most of the show. I've seen like a handful of episodes with you at random sleepovers when we were like 15. Is this like one of their most famous episodes?
I do believe so. I mean, like a lot of, obviously, like ghost hunters, ghost adventures. I know of someone who, so they are part of TAPS, and TAPS is like the subgroup of ghost hunters, so that TAPS is who ghost hunters are.
Got it.
And they have different subdivisions around the United States. And one of my previous positions, one of our sales managers, her husband works at TAPS based in Minneapolis.
My God. So you have like a real life connection to the ghost hunters.
Yeah. So they went out and actually went to Eastern State Pen. And they caught on camera, I don't remember which room they were in, but they used it was essentially like the is it the Kinect in Xbox?
Yeah.
Where it picks up your figure using
like
the
little
dots
balls
all
over you. Yeah.
So it puts the dots to.
That was in Paranormal Activity 3. That was in one of the Paranormal Activity movies.
Was it?
Yeah, because they had the Xbox Kinect in their living room, and it like had all the little like dots on the wall, and then you could see like a figure walking by with all the dots on it. It looked like a human shape.
Oh,
that was totally
cool.
from one of the Paranormal Activity movies.
Yeah, so they were there, and it was their video was casted on one person, and then right behind them in this room, someone was hanged, and so it was literally the figure in the video was of a person like higher up off the ground with its legs and arms flailing around like it was just getting hanged.
See, like I don't know if I believe in ghosts. Like I love looking into them and like watching movies about them, but then I always flip-flop back and forth as to whether or not I truly believe in them. Mm-hmm. But like how aside, if you assume that the TV industry is not lying to your face, like how can you explain that? Like the shape of a body hanging from a catwalk with limbs flailing. Like I just don't.
Exactly.
I don't know how that's explained other than like TV magic.
Yeah. I mean, like there are some things I know you can't explain.
Right.
When it comes to TV shows, I feel like sometimes they over-exaggerate
It's
things.
engineered for the audience.
Oh, absolutely, because they need to get their ratings and everything.
Right, no one wants to watch a bunch of people walk through a quiet building with nothing happening.
Right.
But that's boring.
Exactly.
That's essentially this podcast.
Yes.
We're listening to two friends talk about nothing.
Perfect.
Okay, here's the clip.
But it's really not imagined.
Right when the duotine hits you, when you start running, it wraps around you and you can't see anything.
I've seen this clip.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I've seen this clip. Yes, that is so creepy. It looks like something is running down the balcony.
Yes,
yes, terrifying.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yep. Here we go. We're gonna get to.
Daylight time through the hours and hours of footage. Alright.
So the thermal's picking up a temperature change. The IR, of course, we're not going to get anything unless it's a solid mass or, it shows up there. Bottom line, I know what all of us felt. I know what all of us had seen. There was a lot of strange occurrences that happened there. We have 4 different accounts of people on
Yeah, that's like the crew, like running away.
there, and we got it on tape.
Yeah,
There it is. Oh my god.
So essentially, it just looks like, okay, look,
You know, we said,
like,
That's not just like a breeze.
no,
That is not just a breeze.
and you can't. I'm pretty sure they went back to try and like debunk it to see if someone could run back and forth that fast.
Yeah.
But like you can't. Like,
Yeah, they like showed people running down the hallway.
that's it.
That's it. Something cold passed by. Well, that's to know it's something a little warmer than
Yeah.
warmer, correct, I'm sorry.
It's like, it's coming from...
oh, it's a
And so they're looking at the temperature changes.
And that's cell
See
block
if-
12, where we've caught all the other
Yes.
stuff.
I don't know what to call it.
It got cold.
Thermal disturbance?
Thermal
Yeah.
disturbance.
Thermal turned like green and was flashing, and normally that's
So it's
not.
almost picking up a temperature change. The IR, of course, we're not going to get
I must
anything
have
unless
so
it's
many
solid
thermal
mass or,
disturbances in my
shows up
sleep
that
at night because I swear to God I wake up every 5 minutes a different temperature.
Right? It's
I know
terrible.
what
If you
all of
put
us had
a
seen.
camera like that in my
There
room.
was a lot of strange occurrences that happened there.
Here we go.
We have 4 different accounts of people on our own crew and team experiencing the same thing there, and we got it on tape.
Like,
There it is.
so the shadow,
Yeah.
it just like runs towards the camera, but then backs away.
Right.
But it looks like there's like someone in a cape
Yeah.
running back and forth.
And it doesn't look like a person.
No.
It doesn't look like someone wearing all black. It just
No.
looks like a shadowy silhouette. Like, that's not a person.
No. And
But it's
there's no
obviously
way
something.
that you'd be able to like recreate that. Mm-hmm. Like, no.
That's
I just,
terrifying.
oh gosh. There are just some things I just.
You know it's legit when Ghost Hunters goes to a location and captures creepy stuff on camera.
It's great.
Yep.
So those are just kind of like the 2 main big haunting things that essentially happened. So obviously there were a lot of different cell blocks within the penitentiary, and within each different cell block there are kind of different stories and things that people have experienced and witnessed and like feelings and everything. So let's see, so cell block 12 is where a lot of people kind of see more of the shadowy figures. I'm not fully sure where the catwalk is, like what cell block.
Oh, yeah, like relative
or
to the rest of
area.
the prison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they see shadowy figures, they hear whispers, screams, laughter.
That's terrifying.
right?
Laughter. Who's laughing in this goddamn prison?
Like, I'm sure it's probably like a terrible, creepy cackle.
like
that you-
some
like a-
person
like
who's
a-
so messed up from all the
Yes.
torture.
Yep. Like a madman cackle.
Delicious.
Oh god, I couldn't even imagine hearing that. Like just walking
No.
through and
No, that's a hard
Like it.
pass. Hard
What?
pass. If anyone is
Oh my
laughing
God.
in a dilapidated prison,
Uh-huh.
like I don't know.
Bye. See you later.
Goodbye. Never
Getting
again.
the
Never
fuck
again.
out. Oh
That's
god.
a good cue to GTFO.
Pretty much. Yeah, and so then just a lot of like the tourists and employees who go around and give the tours, they report hearing weeping, giggling, cackling,
Weeping.
whispering. A lot of echoing voices, shadowy figures darting like along the walls. That was something else too that the locksmith had saw when he was working. He saw a shadowy figure bounce from cell to cell, and like
Like at an inhuman speed?
I
Like
think so.
bouncing back and forth?
yeah,
Oh,
like
that's
going back and
creepy.
forth, probably going through the walls and nope,
It's probably
nope.
Jimmy.
Yep. Also visions of ghostly faces, which would be absolutely terrifying. Like all of a sudden looking up and there's a face right in front of you.
Yeah, no, thank
no.
you.
And then just seeing silhouettes. They would see silhouettes of guards in some of the different towers. And then also just hearing footsteps, wails, whispers. Again, cackling, screaming. Like, I couldn't even imagine.
All of the nightmare things. It's not just
Pretty
like
much.
one of the nightmare things. Like, oh,
All
you can hear
of
people
them.
crying. No, you can hear people crying and maniacally laughing like a demon.
Yep.
And you see shadowy figures and ghostly faces.
You
it's
literally
like
get
your
everything.
nightmare in one spot.
Yep.
So,
terrible.
If any of you want to get the shit scared out of you, you can still tour this place today.
Yes, you can.
If you live in the Philadelphia area.
If you want to, it is groups of 5 to 15 people.
15?
Yeah, up to 15.
Holy buckets.
They have tours from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
There it is.
to 1 a.m.
9 a.m.
That's
not scary. 9 in the
your own
morning.
tour.
Yeah.
And it's $105 is what I saw.
Hey.
So,
if you want to see a ghost, it ain't
go.
cheap. It ain't cheap, I tell you.
I'd totally go, though.
Yeah, totally.
Take a road trip.
Totally.
Go.
We're going to try to find some places in Minnesota. We're from Minnesota, by the way.
Yeah.
Yay, it's cold here.
We're going to go to, there's one in Duluth.
Yep.
Penitentiary. There's some ghost tours that we can go on.
Yeah.
So we'll go on those and give you our feedback on what we think.
Yeah, so if you have ever been to anywhere in Minnesota that's haunted, or if you have your own haunted stories or places where you've gone on ghost tours and seen crazy shit, we want to hear about it. We want to hear about... In fact, if it doesn't even have to be paranormal. If you've had crazy, creepy things, if you have accidentally been part of a cult, if you are related to a murderer, if you have any sort of crazy, messed up stuff in your life, we want to hear all about it. So send your stories of any hauntings or ghost tours or scary things that have happened to you to nightmarenation19@gmail.com. And we're going to start reading those stories at the end of each episode. So I think for now, Anna has a story.
Yeah. So, like, pretty much my whole life, I haven't experienced really anything. And I've always wanted to. When I was younger, at my grandma's house, she lived out in West St. Paul. After my grandpa had died, he died in the living room in their house. And after he died, I couldn't be in that house alone. I just got like this heavy feeling in my chest. In the front end, like the kitchen was a super small house. It was a rambler, one floor, tiny house. So in the kitchen and living room, I was fine. But the house essentially went into a circle. So once you were out of the kitchen, you went into the dining room, went back further. It was 2 bedrooms, came around the circle as a bathroom, and then came in. It was the like family room area. So super tiny. But anytime I went past the family room, dining room, and went towards the back, I could not be back there. Like, just this heaviness, this weight, just constantly feeling like someone is watching you.
Just like a physical, like, gut reaction to the space.
Just
like, you can't explain
uncomfortable. It. Yeah. And, I no. So it was kind of like really my only experience there. But the one that really kind of sticks out in my mind that I'm still weary about. So my fiance and I, we absolutely love going up to Duluth. So we went up for a weekend and we stayed in a lighthouse in, I think it's 2 Harbors. And they have like, it's super, super cute bed and breakfast. They have like 3 different rooms that you can rent out and then like a little off suite and everything. It's still a working lighthouse and everything. So we went out there. There was another couple staying in a room next to us, but we were the only people in this house. The guy who actually runs a bed and breakfast had left for the night, was gone. The couple wasn't there, so it was literally just us. So we were in the main floor. It had a kitchen, like a little cute little dining area, and then living room. And in the living room, they actually had a notebook of ghost stories from the lighthouse.
Oh my god!
Where people could just like write their stories.
I have not heard this.
I don't know. I would have thought I would have told you.
Seriously.
But yeah, and they had like a lot of old artifacts and just like information and history about the lighthouse and everything. Super awesome. And then upstairs is where the 3 bedrooms and the bathroom were, and so each of them were locked. We all had our own key to our bedrooms. And then there was a separate door that got you then up into the actual lighthouse portions, like up to where the light is. And it had like the history of what the lighthouse was and who still owns it and this and that. So we were there for about an hour or so before we just started looking around. We were down in the living room. We were looking through the books, looking through all the different artifacts and things, just kind of walking around. We knew no one was in there. All of a sudden, we just hear these little taps upstairs.
Like footsteps?
Yeah, like footsteps, just like super small taps. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it literally sounded like someone was taking like a desk or a chair and just scraping it and moving it across the floor.
Oh my god.
Probably for about 2-3 seconds and then stopped. And I looked at Ben, I was like, is anybody else in here? He's like, no, I don't think the people upstairs are here. It's like, are you kidding me?
Oh my god, I just got like chills. That is so creepy.
It was super
Not just
creepy.
one or the other, but both.
Yeah.
Tip tap, and then a scraping sound.
Yeah.
That is
super
terrifying.
weird. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
So I still can't make out what that was.
Did you put it in the ghost log book?
No, I should have.
Oh my god.
I know, but yeah, I still don't know what happened. Ben just thinks it was some wind or something got knocked down. He doesn't believe it. I'm like, nah.
Wind doesn't make tip-tapping sounds, I feel like little footstep sounds doesn't come from wind, I feel like. There's gotta be something.
It was definitely terrifying. Not terrifying, but weird. It was weird.
Terrifying. I'd be a little terrified.
Yeah. But so that's my ghost story for your friends.
Cool, good one.
So send us in your stories. We love to hear them. We want to hear all the spooky, weird craziness that goes on in your lives.
They do not have to be Minnesota based.
Nope.
Anywhere in the world.
Anywhere you tell us.
Tell us about it at nightmarenation19@gmail.com.
Yes.
Send it in. We'll start reading it at the end of every episode.
Absolutely. Go follow us on Facebook.
Yep. Facebook
Nightmare
and
Nation.
Instagram
as well.
Yep.
Go find us.
Social media. It's great.
Follow us. We'll have all of our podcast links on there, as well as links to different videos that we have, links to new scary movies that are coming out.
We'll share the picture of that creepy
catwalk.
Horrible picture of that catwalk, which just like gives me chills just thinking about it.
Yep.
We'll probably talk about all the different scary movies that are coming up on the Facebook page, because we're obsessed with them. So we want to hear from you guys.
Let us know, interact.
Don't get possessed by a demon.
Yeah,
tonight.
Don't do that. Don't use Ouija boards.
Yeah, no, seriously, of all the things. Oh my god, we'll have to do an episode at some point
go
where
on
we
a
use
rant.
a Ouija board.
Please don't do that, friends.
No,
that's just bad
choices. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
If you get it at a garage sale, especially don't do it.
Just toss it.
You don't know who that belonged to.
Exactly.
If you find it at Barnes & Noble, chances are it came from a manufacturer. It's probably not haunted.
But if you buy one from a garage sale,
that's
just say
probably the possession of someone who either was murdered or knew someone who was murdered,
or just Satan,
or Satan himself.
Demons,
probably Satan.
So stay safe, friends. Make good choices.
Right.
Go visit all the haunted places.
Yeah, and then tell us about it.
Yeah.
All right.
Until next time.
See you next time on
Nightmare Nation.
Yeah.